All right, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about the most powerful engine you've got, the one that's humming away right between your ears. We're talking about curiosity, that deep driving force that makes us want to learn and discover and, just grow. So let's pop the hood, shall we? Let's see how this incredible engine actually works. You know that feeling, right? That little mental itch you get when you come across something you just don't get. It's kind of nagging. And then, when you finally figure it out, that amazing aha moment, why does that feel so incredibly good? Well, turns out there's a really good reason. So first things first, we need to kind of reframe how we think about curiosity. It's not just some personality quirk, something some people have and others don't. No, it's actually a fundamental biological process. It's a kind of tension, a state of imbalance that your brain is literally hardwired to resolve. And that brings us to this key idea from a model called the Brain Kinematics Model. It's called the strain gradient. Just think of it like this. All your current knowledge is like a calm, flat surface. When some new, totally unknown piece of information comes along, it disrupts that surface. It creates tension, and that tension is the strain gradient. The powerful, almost automatic drive your brain has to flatten it back out, yeah, that's curiosity. That's it in action. You see, this whole idea of strain and release, it's not just a neat metaphor. It's physically happening inside your brain, powered by some very specific biological hardware. So let's get into the nitty-gritty and look at your brain's own discovery engine. So think of it like a four-part system that launches an idea. First, you've got the ventral tegmental area. It's like the lookout, spotting something new and unfamiliar on the horizon. Immediately, your hippocampus, the brain's librarian, searches the archives and goes, whoa, wait a minute, this doesn't match anything we have on file. That mismatch alert then triggers the anterior cingulate cortex, and that's what creates that mental itch. Finally, your prefrontal cortex, the mission commander, steps in and says, okay, team, here's our plan to figure this thing out. It's just this beautiful, coordinated dance happening in your head all the time. So what's fueling this whole operation? Good old dopamine. But here's the really cool part. Your brain doesn't just give you a dopamine hit for finding the answer, it actually rewards you for the search. It releases dopamine while you're exploring, which makes the very act of trying to figure something out feel good. It's amazing. We are literally built to enjoy the journey of learning. And what about that aha moment? Well, it's not just a feeling. It's a real, physical, measurable event in your brain. Scientists can actually see it on an EEG. There's this burst of high-frequency brainwaves right at the instant you get that flash of insight. It's the literal sound of all these different brain networks suddenly clicking together in perfect harmony. Okay, so let's tie all of this together now. The Brain Kinematics Model gives us this fantastic way to see the whole process. We can think of it as a three-phase wave, watching how that initial tension builds and then resolves into satisfying insight. So it all happens in three main stages. First, initiation. That's where the tension starts. Then, exploration, where your brain goes on the hunt. And finally, discovery, where that wave crashes and you get that sweet, sweet moment of coherence. Let's break down each phase of this wave. Phase 1 is what the model calls form. This is initiation. It's that moment a new question creates that strain we talked about. This is the rising wave. The feeling you get is surprise, maybe a little bit of wonder, and the question in your head is simple. What is this? Then we move into phase 2, continuum. This is the exploration part. The wave is kind of churning now, modulating, as your brain is actively searching for connections. It's testing out different ideas, trying to see how this new piece of info fits into what it already knows. You feel engaged. There's anticipation. The question has now evolved into, okay, how does this fit? And then, phase 3, motion. This is the discovery. It's the payoff. The wave finally crests and then just relaxes. The information clicks into place, the strain is gone, and you're flooded with that feeling of joy, relief, and deep satisfaction. The tension has resolved into that powerful thought. Ah, now I understand. Now, this is where things get really wild. What if this mental wave, this whole process of form, continuum, and motion, doesn't just describe what happens in one person's head over a few seconds? What if it could also describe the intellectual rhythm of an entire civilization over hundreds of years? It's a huge leap, but it's a fascinating one. This table is a really interesting way to map those phases onto broad cultural tendencies. So, for example, the Western tradition often puts a huge emphasis on the beginning and the end of that wave, a high value on form, which is all about measurable empirical data, and on motion, the output,
like public debate and expression. The Islamic Persian tradition, historically, has been incredibly focused on that middle phase, continuum, creating these grand, coherent systems that synthesize science and philosophy. And then you have many Far Eastern traditions, which really emphasize both that harmony of continuum and embodied action, or motion, through things like ritual and meditation.
And you can kind of see echoes of these big historical trends in general societal values even today. So Western societies often really value high motion. Think about the emphasis on individualism, self-expression, entrepreneurship. Many Islamic Persian societies lean more toward continuum, valuing coherence, tradition, and community. And many Far Eastern societies often blend a high value on form, things like discipline and precision, with continuum, things like social harmony and balance. So after all that big picture thinking, let's bring it right back home, back to you. Why does any of this matter? Why is it important to understand how curiosity works? Well, because this engine is what moves us, all of us. It moves us forward. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? Curiosity isn't random. It's a mechanism. It's a self-energizing loop. It takes that uncomfortable feeling of not knowing and transforms it into the solid, stable satisfaction of understanding. It turns ignorance into insight. And if you take one thing away from all of this, let it be this. Curiosity isn't something you are, it's something you do. It's a verb. It's an action. It is the active engine that has driven every single discovery and every bit of human progress. It is our evolutionary secret weapon against standing still. So, I'll leave you with this question. Look around your world, at your job, in your life, in the books you read. Find that feeling of tension, that little mental itch of not knowing. What strain, what question are you going to resolve next?